Alright everybody, sorry about my technology fail.
See if you can.
I think we're back up and running again, hopefully. I'm going to just make sure that I can see us and play buddies still. Okay, some of you are back and here. Once again, so sorry.
We don't know what happened. It just died.
Yeah. Okay.
So where were you?
I was in the middle of attaching a slab onto the top of my butter dish. So I'm going to set the base aside.
Tim C is watching.
And clean up the inside. As you can see, it's kind of a mess in there. Josh and I practiced a whole bunch of videos this morning and making sure that we had all the angles right, but it didn't punk out on us then. Oh well, that's okay. So now that this is attached in place, I am going to cut the slab to shape. Well, there's a few people. Thanks guys for coming back. Again, sorry about the interruption. I'm not sure what happened.
Nicky Mizak.
So I'm carefully cutting under the edge of my lid. I'll take the extra off. You can see that's the shape that I cut, but it was hard kind of cutting under this edge. So now I'm going to flip it right side up and again cut off that extra little edge. Just trimming, trimming, trimming.
Everybody says you're back.
I'm back! I'm back! It's amazing!
Tell your friends.
See, everybody come over to this post instead of the other one. So it is 2 o'clock. That little 10-minute interruption. I should have finished just on time, but I haven't looked at the schedule to see if somebody's on next, because I don't want to go over your time.
I don't believe so. I think there was an hour in between people.
Okay. So
Can't remember if that's the case. Maybe Tim can confirm.
Or Stacy.
Yeah. Hour between.
Okay. So I'm going to run about 10 minutes over. Hope that's okay.
You can go over. I left an hour in between.
Okay. So I just took my finger and kind of popped this up from the inside to give this lid a little bit of volume. And we are almost done. So now that I've done all that, we'll make sure that it still fits on the base. And then I've got a set of handles that had a chance to stiffen up a little bit, just like the ones I pulled earlier, if you were here for that part. And inevitably when I pull these, this edge ends up being a little bit fat, and this end ends up being a little bit wide and skinny. So to even those two up, I'm going to come in, kind of flatten out the one end, make sure that they're uniform, and then we'll cut them into a nice curve. I'll cut one end, and cut the other end, and then check and see the size in relation to the butter dish, and that looks pretty good, but you can see right now it's kind of sitting up on this corner. So to make my handle have more surface area to attach, I'll come in and cut off that corner. And then it's always easier to access your edges before you attach than afterwards. So I'm just going to take my fingers and smooth all of this out. And then we'll slip and score the lid. And slip and score the handle.
Martha's very fond of slipping and then scoring.
I feel like you end up with the same result in 2 steps instead of 3. If I scored first and then applied slip, I'd have to go back and score through it again.
Judy Funk Andrews!
Judy!
They asked about the knife.
The knife. This is a Dolan knife. They are the best knives in the world. It's a 220C. We love the makers of Dolan knives. So now I'm making sure that that handle is nice and attached. And then you can always give it just a little bit of a tug to make sure that it doesn't pop off. When I make a mug, I usually actually pick it up by the handle at this point to check, but this lid is a little bit bigger. But I do pull back to make sure that it's not going to pop off. Then we'll clean up the seam. On the inside and the outside. Make sure we're happy with the curve. And then my 2 little overlapping handles, these guys, the ends tend to dry out faster than the rest, so I usually dip them in a little bit of water. And then the end that I cut when it was wet is of course not terribly beautiful. So I'm going to come in and kind of bevel that edge and a little bit of a curve.
How long has the clay dried that it's cutting so smoothly?
So these handles I let sit out for about an hour after I pulled them, so that they developed a skin, but they were still pliable enough that I can bend them and curve them without the clay cracking.
Next question was, where is your green apron from?
My mama made it! So, when my mom makes me these aprons, we just measure me, and I really like it because it's got a cross at the back.
Spin around.
So that the apron wouldn't be pulling on the back of my neck.
Oh, Maggie's here.
Hi, little puppy. Hello. Are you being very helpful? Yes.
Maggie's a good kid.
All right, so on the top of this handle.
A skin, just meaning that the clay has started to stiffen up a little bit on the surface.
What was the question?
Just a skin question mark. Like you said, the handles had a skin.
So they have stiffened enough that the clay isn't sticky and you're not making fingerprints anymore. But it's still soft enough that you can alter and change it. So I took the extra clay from these little handles and I made this little finial. And I did it out of the clay that I cut off of the handles because this has the same moisture content. So that when I attach it between them, it's not going to shrink more than the handles as they dry. If I grabbed a fresh piece of clay, it would tend to shrink more and then pop out.
There was a question about the alumina and the wax, and if the alumina and the wax both burn off.
The alumina stays there, so when I get the piece out of the kiln, there is this little bit of a white dust in the flange, but it brushes right off afterwards. But alumina is highly refractory, which means it doesn't melt at all, it doesn't flux at all during a cone 10 firing. I just pet the dog, now I'm all covered with dog hair. Ay. So it's acting as a release agent, but the wax itself does burn away. I'm just taking these little ends, giving them a little curl, covering them in dog hair.
It's springtime.
Yes, she is shedding. Do that one.
Stacy Morgan says, dog hair, story of my life. It looks like little cracks all over the porcelain pots.
Yes, our dog is black, and so often I'll look at the shelf and think, oh gosh, why did something crack? And then I look closer and say, oh, Maggie was here. So I do slip and score these added little detail handles to make sure that they'll stay hooked on. And then we're going to attach this little piece in the center. We'll slip and score again, and then that goes right in between those two little curls. And then we'll give it a last little once over, making sure I haven't left any excess slip or little fingerprints. And there we have a butter dish.
And where's your finished one for comparison? Shrinkage.
Yeah. But you can see it's still big enough, again, to be able to hold a regular stick of butter as well as Kerrygold butter. East Coast, West Coast, doesn't matter. They all fit. Might even be
Even the Canadian 1-pounder.
Well, I don't know if that would fit in there, but you might have to shave the corners a little bit. But something like that.
Cool. All right. Well, even with a glitch, you still managed to finish it up.
So, since we do have a few minutes before the next person is going to start, maybe I'll give you just a really quick tour of the studio, and you guys can see where Josh and I make our work. So there's our cameraman.
Hello, Clay Buddies.
Who did it all. And again, this is my little studio. It is not huge, but it's enough space for me and my wheel and place to hand build. And then down on this end, we have a showroom. And so there's some of Josh's pots and our beautiful spring weather in Maine and a whole bunch of my pots. And again, we're in Maine. We've got an office with a nice photo booth, although Josh is doing taxes right now, so there are tax papers everywhere. And then the back stock of Martha pots. There are tons and tons of them. And then, as I said earlier, we have a really, really big studio. It's about 6,000 square feet. And we have a teaching studio set up. So this is our classroom area. And of course, we're not having classes right now, as everyone is not having classes. But we've got a nice space for them to work. Classroom glazes, work table, slab roller that I don't use. Great big wash-up sink. Tools for our students. And then down at this end, this is our glaze lab that Josh built. It is a really beautiful, beautiful glaze lab. I feel so lucky every time I go to mix glazes, but we've got nice pull-out bins with all of our dry materials. And clay reclaim, somebody asked about that earlier. There's the hallway where we started out. I have a spray booth that I built out of a shower stall. That's just my covering to keep the winter out, and usually there's a filter over that. Another wash-up sink in the glaze lab. And then we'll come back and finish up at the butter dish. So again, back to my studio, and there's the butter dish we made. So thank you all for watching. Again, I apologize for the interruption in the middle. And I'll try to do this again at some point and hopefully not have things go awry in the center. So thank you all so much.